I'd like to call to order the Governance Committee meeting for CalPERS. The first order of business is the roll call.
Dana Hollinger.
Here.
Rob Beckner.
Good afternoon.
Henry Jones.
Here.
Jason Perez.
Here.
Mona Pascal-Rogers. Here. Ramon Rubalcava. Here. Bill Slayton.
Here.
Thank you. And the second item on the agenda is the election of the Board Governance Committee Chair and Vice Chair. And with that, I'd like to call on Bill Slayton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to nominate Henry Jones to be Chair of the Governance Committee.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for the Governance Committee Chair? Are there any other nominations? Last time, and then we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Henry Jones as chair of the Governance Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
I guess I could have done it from over there, right? Okay, thank you. The second item on the agenda is to elect the vice chair of the governance committee. Do we have a motion, Mr. Perez?
I nominate Ms. Hollinger.
Okay, Ms. Hollinger has been nominated for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? So we could have a vote on electing Ms. Hollinger as chair, vice chair of the governance committee. A motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Fechner, second by Mr. Perez. Okay, yeah. Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nothing. Here, none. So you vote.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we take a few minutes to rearrange. What happened? Okay. Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is to approve the March 19, 2019 Board Committee timed agenda. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Slayton, second by Ms. Hollinger. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. The next item is executive report. Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Jones, committee, and board members. Pretty streamlined agenda this afternoon, just the one substantive item, which is 7A, the update on the board self-evaluation work streams, and Ann Simpson will guide the discussion on that one. That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the action consent item is the approval of the minutes from September the 24th. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Fechner. Second by Ms. Hollinger. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. The next is the information consent item. There's no request to move anything off, so that moves us to item number 7. And this is the update of the board self-evaluation. Ms. Ann Simpson.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to give you a report on the progress to date with this important project on the board's self-evaluation. We've put together a few slides. As we know, in the busy whirl of everything, it's easy to forget quite what happened when and what we planned. So just to recap, the board has a policy of evaluating itself every 2 years, which is good practice. And the purpose of that is twofold. One is to identify strengths. That's important to know what we're good at. But also to identify opportunities for the board, both as a whole and for board members individually, to enhance their effectiveness. And the purpose of that, of course, is to improve the performance of the board, because that's going to have an impact on the performance of CalPERS. This time, the board selected an outside facilitator, the National Association of Corporate Directors, who bring independence to the process, but they also bring expertise. They have 40,000 members throughout the United States, and I think they're globally recognized as a leader in the field of governance best practice. And we were very honored to be able to have, I would say we're very honored to have the Honorable Carrie Dominguez, who has tremendous board experience both in the public and in the private sector, and has also done a lot of work in California. So she's very familiar with the special rules and regulations that apply in California. So again, just to recap, for those of you who joined the board recently, what NACD did was put together 3 surveys, and they were available to each board member who was sitting on the board at the time to be able to answer. They were confidential, they were online, password protected, all that good stuff. And it was really an opportunity to tease out what the important issues were. And the 3 surveys were for the board as a whole, for the committees, and for what we called board attributes. In other words, the dynamics, the conduct of the board, how things really work in practice. Carrie then followed up with each board member at the time and had an interview, typically an hour, sometimes this ran longer, but it was really to give a chance for her to find out more about the thinking behind the answers that had been given in the survey and to dig a little bit deeper. On the basis of that, she came to the January board offsite, which for some of you was your first meeting, and she presented the findings. What she found is that among the many hours of conversation that she had and all of the survey results, a number of themes emerged, and she put those together in a slide called Findings and Opportunities. So then at the January offsite, the board had a very thorough discussion about how to take up these different issues and maybe how to group them into different work streams so that the board could start to work in an organized way to tackle the different opportunities that had been identified. So the main areas that were identified through this process were the need for board curriculum. CalPERS is a very big and complicated organisation, and the board has serious responsibilities that require a lot of thought, care and time. But one finding was really that the board is really looking for more opportunity to learn, both in the orientation process, joining the board, but also ongoing opportunities to develop professional skills and abilities. Another thing that came out was roles and responsibilities. CalPERS is also quite complicated. There's the board, the committees, the consultants, staff, and at times, in the merry whirl of it all, it's not entirely clear to everyone where one job starts and another job ends, and what the division of labour should be. So that was an important area of work. A third area was meeting materials. I think there was all praise for having plenty on quantity and detail, but a concern about whether the materials for the board could be streamlined and honed into focusing on the decisions that the board has to make. And there was a project which was started some months ago called Insight, which the board was able to have a trial run with help from Doug Hoffner and Tim Taylor. The next area that it was felt useful to look at was the idea of developing a code of conduct. Now, CalPERS has many policies that govern different aspects of the board's working. In fact, if you stack them all up, you'd have something you could prop a door open with. It says a huge amount of material. But really, the idea of a code of conduct is that you distill all of the thinking about behaviour and set out expectations so that in one place you've got a strong and clear statement of board conduct. And it was felt that there could be an opportunity there. And finally, the Insight prototype, which was given its maiden voyage, if you like, at the board offsite, it was agreed by the board that it would be very helpful as that project develops to have our test pilots to continue. So that's our fifth work stream. So let me tell you now where we've got to in planning. We've given each work stream a number, just for the sake of convenience. There's no hierarchy implied. This is just the order that it all fell in. And I'm delighted to say that our board president, Henry Jones, has kindly nominated 2 board members to each of the work streams so that we can get started on picking up these opportunities. So on work stream 1, tongue twisters here, work stream 1, board curriculum. So what we think for each of the work streams would be helpful is to organise the project in a logical way. So the first thing is to look at what CalPERS' current practice is. So CalPERS has a new board member onboarding programme. You've all been through some of it or part of it, and we think from the self-evaluation that the board's ready for us to upgrade this to an orientation programme. The second thing in each of the work streams we want to do is look at leading practice, and this is where NACD comes in. We're going to keep them on as our trusted advisors through this process, in order that we can draw on the leading practices of other boards that are members of NACD, and really just continue to have that third-party independent expert on anything that the board begins to develop. However, we'll also be using other organisations that have got experience that CalPERS can benefit from. So 2 examples here, the National Conference on Public Employee Retirement Systems. They do some very nice training, which Ms. Brown drew to my attention recently, thank you. And also the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst Institute. And of course, they're the worldwide body that accredits investment professionals. So on the investment side of CalPERS work, they could be helpful. So as you are all aware, this work stream will be led by 2 board members, Teresa Taylor and Mona Pasquale-Rogers. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to working with you. And the goal of this work stream is to establish a richer and ongoing board orientation, in other words, the onboarding, but upgraded, board orientation and continuing education programme. So that's the goal of work stream 1. The way that we're going to work is have a meeting together, which we'll do in the next couple of days. We'll kick off this work plan. And the first thing we'll do is sift out what we think the priorities are. Then we're going to develop a timeline with input from the NACD faculty member, Carrie Dominguez, and the staff at NACD. We'll work out the roles and responsibilities, to come back to that theme, between the board members and staff and NACD, so we have clarity about who's doing what. And we'll also agree a timetable for reporting back to this committee, so that the CalPERS Board's Governance Committee can monitor the progress and make sure that we're heading in the right direction. Workstream 2, we're following the same structure. This work stream is looking at the big topic of roles and responsibilities throughout the CalPERS governance structure. We'll be reviewing current practice, so that means taking a look at the board, the committee, and the board president delegations. We'll be looking at remunerated board time policy, the requirements of the public employees retirement law, and current board policy that's relevant. And of course then leaning into NACD to find out what's leading practice and resources that are available to help us make progress clarifying roles and responsibilities. The two leads for this work stream are our board president, Henry Jones, thank you, and Betty Yee. The goals of this work stream are clear. They're to revisit the committee structures and the committee composition, to review the role of board consultants, and finally to explore the equitable allocation of remunerated board time. Again, we'll follow the same format of getting together to map out priorities, timeline, and NACD's input, the role of the team involved supporting the board members, and our reporting cycle to the Governance Committee. So Workstream 3, meeting materials. As I said, tremendous progress has been made on this through the Insight project, which got its first outing at the January board offsite. The current practice for meeting materials is we have the prospective annual calendar. We've got the use of board software, which can be improved to organise meeting materials. And we have, I think this is a polite term, significant content and resource material, which means there's a lot. But again, we'll look at NACD, and I'm pleased to say that the two board members who'll be leading this work are Dana Hollinger and David Miller, so thank you. The goal of this work stream will be to review the calendar and the format for board meetings, and also to streamline both format and content of agenda item materials. And of course the Insight project, which we'll be piloting in another work stream, is going to be extremely helpful in that work. Again, we've got the same format for priorities, timeline, and reporting back. But on meeting materials, because we're going to, through this work stream, the board members will be looking at the issue of the timing and format of board meeting, we're also going to be sure that a request from an important stakeholder group is going to be carefully considered. The League of California Cities has asked for some changes to the timing of board meetings, so this work stream will be able to pick up that request and consider what would be a good way forwards. So the work stream 4 is the Code of Conduct. So again, we'll be looking first of all at what we've got, CalPERS current practice. That's obviously governance policy, but also a document known as Rules and Guidelines for the Conduct of Meetings. And there are a number of other related policies on permissible activities and travel, and a number of other issues around conduct like harassment that this work stream will want to look at. Of course, NACD again will be looking at what other funds do that we can learn from. And our two leads for this project are Rob Fechner and Jason Perez, so thank you. And the goal is a bit like, it does what it says on the tin. The goal for this is to create a code of conduct for CalPERS board members. It's an important piece of work. So same thing, how will we go about this? Priorities, timeline, NACD faculty input, role and responsibilities in a reporting cycle. And then finally, it was extremely valuable at the offsite to be able to have direct input from board members on the Insight project. So this fifth work stream is really to continue with a beta test. I think that's a fancy way of saying trying it out, trying it for size. We want to make sure as this project's developed that it's really meeting the board's needs. And of course, the board will have fantastic ideas about how to improve the portal. So Tim Taylor will be taking the lead, continuing to develop this important work with Doug Hoffner. But we see it wrapping into the work stream on improving the flow of meeting materials. So the purpose of this work, of course, is to give an integrated portal for the board that's not only giving the supporting information, but also historical information and relevant policies for the board and for committees to be able to discharge their responsibilities that are specifically reserved for the board. So, Beta Test 1. This sounds like something out of NASA. I love it. So Beta Test 1 for Insight Tool Prototype. Margaret Brown and Ramon Rubalcava, thank you very much. You'll be our Beta Test 1 team. And the goal here, of course, of this project is to give the board insights for direction and for policy decisions that the board has to make, and to ensure that you've got the information for prudent oversight. And of course, technology is our friend, but technology can be bewildering as well as helpful. So having this beta test is going to be extremely useful. But no, there's more. We have beta test 2. We also are going to have a separate beta test work stream with Bill Slayton and Fiona Marr, and thank you, Frank Ruffino, who will no doubt be helping with this. It has the same goal, but we've got two testing, if you like, two testing tracks going on at the same time with 2 sets of board pairs. So I realised that was a lot to rattle through, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions or hear any comments from the committee on progress to date.
Good. Thank you very much, Ms. Simpson, and I want to applaud you and Marcia and the rest of the staff for such a prompt response in getting this going to the next step. So, because it's such a important body of work, so we really appreciate that. I also want to just recognize the other board members here, Mr. Cobb, Ms. Paquian, Ms. Brown, Mr. Miller, and Ms. Taylor, also in attendance here with us. And we do have a couple of questions, and Ms. Brown.
Thank you. This looks like a lot of work. So I think you might just be the person for this, these tasks. I appreciate you lining these up as well as you did. I do want to go back to the people that are assigned to the Code of Conduct, because it does include the harassment policy. And so I might suggest that we have a woman on there as opposed to just 2 men. Looking for a little diversity in that representation on the board. I hadn't talked to Lynn about maybe having Betty Yee do that, but certainly looking for a female in that role.
Ms. Paquian?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And, you know, I can certainly talk to the controller, but I know that she was very interested in the work stream that she's been assigned to. So I appreciate...
You can take another one.
No, well, she's pretty busy.
Well,
but
why don't we do
appreciate
this?
the sentiment about
why don't we
the
do this? I'll chat with Matt and see if it's possible to have 3 members instead of 2. It's not, so we have to. Yeah, we'll look at it. But, huh? Well, Ann is in. You know, she's running the meeting, so that's.
I
Yeah,
am
but 3
female.
gets us.
Yeah.
Oh,
The rumors
Okay.
are true.
Okay, Ann's in the meeting, so that's the woman, and she's a participant, an active participant in the process. So I think that will cover the concern. Okay, Mr. Slayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you, Ann, for taking the lead on making this all happen. This is always a very difficult and challenging thing for any body, this particular group, to hold up the mirror at ourselves and figure out how we can be better. It's always, there's a little bit of discomfort when we do this, but it's important. It's an important process to do. So please convey my appreciation and all of our appreciation to NACD for helping us get to this point. And I think this assignment of work streams is an excellent way to do this because it gets board input, board member input as we develop it, as opposed to having something developed and then being just brought to us to wrestle with. So I think it's a great start. The devil's in the details, and we'll see what we come up with. But I'm looking forward to being a guinea pig in work stream 5, I guess it is. So thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Okay, wait, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I just again want to say thank you for this, and I, in other roles, I have examined a lot of board self-assessment approaches, and they all involve some sort of survey and some introspection and then a plan of action, which is usually to consciously increase our awareness of our opportunities for improvement and maybe read some articles and try to do better next time, and we'll see in 3 years. And so to see this, where we're actually going to do some work on opportunities for improvement is really encouraging from my perspective, and I thank you for that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to all of the board, because we are going about it in an interesting and unusual way, which is for every board member to participate. And that means the success of this is a shared responsibility. So thank you for your time, your ideas, and your attention, because I think CalPERS can do some really good work in this field.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a request to speak on this item. Mr. Tim Burns, Al Darby, Dane Hutchison, and Jerry Fountain. If you could all come to these.
Our comments are on the League of Cities' request to change the days for the CalPERS meeting, which we were told is added to this.
Yes. Come on up and don't talk from there. But I think it's important to note that this was a request, and it will be discussed as we go through the process. So it's not any action.
So we get first bite of the apple.
Yeah.
Chairman Jones, members of the committee, and members of the board, Tim Behrens, President of the California State Retirees. We have been told that there's been a request by the League of Cities to change the days of the CalPERS meetings to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'm here to share at least 3 or 4 reasons that I think that's a bad idea. I've been working with my 26 chapter presidents that are scattered out all over the state for 3 years to convince them not to have their chapter meetings during CalPERS Board Week, for a number of reasons, one not the least of which is CalPERS members can't attend their chapter meetings upon request, and many of them are doing that at this time, so it would have a big impact on that. Statistically, Highway 99 and I-5 on Fridays are the worst time for anybody to travel, especially senior citizens. That's when most accidents statistically occur. And according to the leadership of the California Highway Patrol retirees, even law enforcement doesn't like traveling on those 2 highways on Fridays. So something to think about. Also, flying planes on Fridays, trying to fly out of Sacramento somewhere else in California is the worst time, difficult, backed up, you name it. It'd be a very big inconvenience for shareholders that fly. And finally, on behalf of myself, Saturday is the only day that I usually take off for my duties as the president. And I would not travel on Friday to go home. So I would be coming home on Saturday, which is the day I like to play golf. So it would have a major impact on my golf game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Jerry Fontaine, Chief Financial Officer for the California State Retirees. To tag along to what President Barron's already mentioned, we represent 26 chapters throughout the state. And we do send our board members, when we possibly can, to the chapter meetings. And we represent approximately 38,000 statewide members. So it's important for us to stay in contact with our membership to, if nothing else, pass along the information that we obtain here at the CalPERS board. So I would encourage you to give it some strong consideration before you change the dates. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hal Darby, President, Retired Public Employees Association. Congratulations, Mr. Jones, on your election, and Ms. Hollinger on your election. And committee members, RPEA opposes this plan. This proposal disrupts the schedule of regular attendees, ourselves and you, in favor of intermittent attendees. Often you don't see anybody here from the cities and counties unless there's a hot button issue to address. Friday, as Mr. Behrens has mentioned, is one of the worst days to travel on the road or by air. And Friday is often a getaway day for people, and they don't work that day or shorten their day. So you could be deprived of the wisdom of some of the best minds because they're on their way to the ski slopes or the big waves. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Mr. Hutchins.
Good afternoon, Chair, members. Dane Hutchings with the League of California Cities. First and foremost, I want to state that it was never our intent to endanger seniors while they're traveling on a Friday. Certainly don't want to, to increase the rate of car accidents or, jammed up flights and all that good stuff. Look, we made this request. We didn't think that any action was going to be taken in the dead of night or anything like that. We want more transparency. What I think you're hearing from our members is that while it may be inconvenient for folks to get here on different days, our council members have obligations specifically on Tuesdays, and usually Mondays for preparation. And so we have our council meetings every Tuesday evening. And as I can tell you, in the last 18 to 24 months that we have really stepped up our engagement, some of the biggest issues that have hit CalPERS when we talk about the ALM cycle review, discount rate reduction, specific pieces of legislation that would have significant impact on the way we operate, or that would have a significant impact on how our rates are increased, are usually held on Tuesday evenings during Finance and Admin Committee. So I'm certainly, and my members are certainly open to not being stuck to the Friday. I understand that it could pose some difficult challenges for folks with regards to travel and whatnot. Perhaps even a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule is something that the committee would be looking at, or the board would look to explore. Something that acknowledges the fact that one of the pillars of this organization is trying to double down on engagement with all stakeholders. And while I would hope that one day when I hang them up and I retire, I'll have more flexibility to be able to show up to a board meeting whenever I can, the members that I serve don't have the same latitude as some of the other folks that have may have to sacrifice a golf day to get out here and testify at a board meeting. So, but no, that's a little bit tongue in cheek. But my point is this: is that we want to engage. One of the gentlemen did make a point that said that League of Cities doesn't engage unless it's a hot button issue. I think that you all have seen me here quite a lot over the last couple of years. I continue to I'll be here tomorrow too, so 3 for 3 this month. But my members want to engage too. They want to understand this issue. oftentimes we talk about some of the more significant challenges. All they do is look at their balance sheet and say, why are my contributions increasing so significantly? They want an opportunity to tell their story. They want an opportunity to engage, and they want to learn more about how this organization operates. And so having open communication and flexibility on how we can address that to increase engagement from all stakeholders, I think that's really what we're trying to get at here. And so look forward to the work of the committee, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much for the time today.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, we have Mr. Fechner.
Yes, Mr. Hutchings, before you run off, just a couple of things. First of all, I'm probably sure that your constituents are watching the live version on the webcast during the week, since their meetings are mostly at night. Mm-hmm. But has there been any consideration of, on a rotating basis, one of those council members not attending that meeting and coming up here? I can understand not doing that all the time, but if they rotated that, if they were that interested, could they not do such a thing?
Typically, the way our organization is structured is we usually have maybe one or sometimes two council members from out of the 475 of our cities, out of the 42, that are really engaged with the League of Cities. And so I think sending a council member out of a 5-member council or a 7-member council that, quite frankly, isn't engaged with our organization and doesn't really understand the issues, I don't know if they'd be comfortable doing that. It's certainly something I can broach with them. I think where you're going to find some of the most policy expertise are from those city managers, who also are required to be at those council meetings on Tuesday evenings. And so, those are the folks that really can engage. Also, some of our more engaged council members that have expressed a strong interest in attending have said to me, is there a way that we can at least move some of these committees to days that we can make it? I have not offered that, but I certainly can go back to my membership and check on that. Yeah.
And would you provide any additional input to Ms. Simpson so that they can get to the committee that's working on this item?
Certainly. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Slayton.
Yeah, I appreciate the retirees' comments on this. I don't like to drive or fly on Fridays. I also don't like to fly or drive on Sundays. So we have a problem at both ends of the spectrum. I think given the issues that the League has pointed out, it seems to me that within this work stream, we should also work on the strategy of placing agenda items, so that we should be able to know if there's an area that is of particular concern to local government, and maybe we could do a better job of putting those on the agenda, recognizing that it's difficult to be there on Tuesdays. So that's just one thought for the people who are working on the work stream.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the discussion on this item. The next item on the agenda is summary of committee direction.
Yes, Chair Jones, we have missed 5B when we went through the agenda, probably because it's not on the overhead, although it should be in the materials. 5B is just the review of the Board Governance Committee delegation.
Okay.
And if the committee
Yes, so it's an action item.
Right,
so
right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jacobs, for calling that to my attention. So it is an action item. It's the review of the Board Governance Committee delegation. Do we have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Ms. Hollinger.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fechner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the item passes. Thank you for that catch. Okay, so anything else, Mr. Jacobs?
No.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.